Thank you for stopping in. This is Larry DeBose at DeBoseWoodworking.com. I'm here today to show you the first of a three-part series on how this bed got put together. It is a really special project I had a chance to do for some friends, military veteran background, all around really service, humble, just caring family, and really wanting to knock things out of the park in terms of all the details on this, make something that's going to last a long time for them. If you are interested in seeing that, the first of this series is going to go through how the posts get put together. So what's going to join both the headboard and the footboard together is not just one solid piece of wood, but as you can see here, it's going to be several pieces of wood, solid walnut in the middle, and then the outside of it is going to have a piece of wood that's been split in half on the bandsaw so that it looks the same all the way through, because this on the front and on the back is going to be the same board. So some unique techniques that are going into that first part of the video. Second part of the video, or part 2 in the series, is going to showcase how the headboard is going to be constructed, and then give you a little more view of the headboard. Third part of this series is going to go into details about the rails. There's a special, or the slats. There's a special way that I do those in order to keep everything square and to prevent any type of racking that could happen to a bed over time. And it's also going to show that final finish and install. If you're interested in that, come along and see the process. So this first video, in order to get everything prepared, we got to get the posts ready and the rails ready. You're going to find several steps that are repeated throughout the process. Boils it down to getting the wood jointed, making sure that that ends up being brought to the appropriate thickness, ripping that on a table saw, gluing and clamping, waiting, and then cleaning up the material afterwards. The first step in the process is hand selecting the boards that are going to go into this. First day, after I've let that go ahead and acclimate to my shop, I'm going to go ahead and build these up for those horizontal members known as the rails that hold the headboard and the footboard together. When building the rails, what I do is I want to make something that's a little thicker than 3/4 of an inch thick, about an inch thick, maybe an inch and an eighth would be good to get away with. I go ahead and I take the same material that I'm going to use. I find a nice face on that. I split it in half so that I can mill that down to 1/4 of an inch. The way I found to be able to do this, it's going to work really well on the bandsaw, is I first make a couple cuts on the table saw. That gives a bandsaw a nice guide to be able to follow all the way through, and it makes it faster. It cuts it faster. I'm sure that I'm not going to mess it up along the way. There's other ways to do this. This is just the technique that's worked for me. With the feather board I have in place, the real key is just that's keeping it from moving out of place. I don't want to put that under tension because I don't want that to be binding against the blade. So what I'm doing is each side I'm going to take about 3/4 to an inch thick cut, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise that blade another 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and then I have that much less material to take off once I get to the bandsaw. And then it's over to the bandsaw where I clean up that cut, making sure to follow the saw curves that I made with the table saw. And then it's over to the planer where I make sure to smooth off the cuts, making both surfaces nice and flat, ready to be glued together. Now that I have the surfaces prepped, I'm ready to glue them up, making sure that I have a book match pattern on both rails that's going to be nice and symmetrical once the bed is built. I've checked and double checked how I'm going to glue that. Now I go ahead, put a coat of Titebond II across the surface, an ink roller, in order to have a nice continuous bead of glue all the way through, making sure to apply it to both surfaces. You're going to notice yellow frog tape on this one. That's to prevent the boards from sticking together once I remove them from the clamps. Now this set of clamps here, this was custom made. So I had someone I knew that worked a long time at a steel mill, welding place. They ended up being able to have access to materials to make these clamps, and then another friend I had ended up making the clamp rack that I've put to use so many times. I watch other videos, and some of the setup and teardown is really, really extensive. It's really nice to be able to avoid that set of setup and teardown. Now, there are other options out there. Some of them are going to include things like a vacuum bag. I don't have one. Don't have the space for it. So for me, for the range of applications I have, this is what's going to work best for me. You do what's best for your situation here. I use those plywood guides there. That helps to give a nice solid glue surface throughout this. I do need to go up and I find I get just a little more squeeze out if I take some nice flat boards on either side and then just put some pressure at the end of this. And now it's on to the next thing. I got 24 hours. I'm going to let this stay in the rack. I've been told I could take it out sooner. As wide as the boards are, I don't want to go any less than 24 hours. I don't need to be in a hurry on this process. I got several glue ups. I don't want to have anything mess up here. So I'm going to let this take its time and move on to something else. Now there is the issue that's always going to come out with squeeze out. What's going to be the best way to do that? Some people are going to let that skim over and then they're going to come back with a putty knife later. Some people are going to wipe it up right away with a paper towel. I found a different approach that works for me. There might be a drawback to this. I haven't seen this in any of the magazines. Some people might have used this over the years, but I got sawdust everywhere. I go ahead, throw piles of that on, mix it in with the glue, and then scrape it with a putty knife afterwards. That saves the expense of the paper towels, which does add up over time. One other thing when I'm doing glue ups like this, for me, putting on a pair of nitrile gloves saves my hands some wear and tear later on, and it's easier to clean up in the process than getting glue all over my hands while I'm working, having to wipe that off, get it on the surface. So just another thing, maybe help you, or maybe a little bit neater and getting this on. But I just find no matter how clean I end up being, I end up getting some glue somewhere, and kind of saves that process. Now while the glue is drying up on that, I'm going to go ahead and prep for the next day. I'm going to get all my stock ready. So at the table saw, I'm ripping 3/4 inch boards to 3.5 inches wide. In a perfect world, I would have longer pieces of this, so I do less glue ups in all. You'll see what I'm talking about a little bit later. But these are going to make up the inner core of the bedpost. And then on the face of those, I'm going to head over to the joiner in just a second to be able to mill up what is going to be on the face of each one of the bedposts. I got real nice riftsawn walnut. Back over at the table saw, I'm going to go ahead and get all my pieces ripped to size for the faces of the bedposts. Now, and just like before, I'm going to stand those on the edge and rip those in half on the table saw. I'm going to skip the bandsaw step and do it all on the table saw. I'm going to leave it just a sliver, so I'm not cutting all the way through with the blade. There's going to be a left that I can pry the two pieces apart once I'm done with that. And then it is back over to the planer where I'm going to mill everything down to 1/4 inch. And now we're on to day two. Day two, I got everything prepped. I'm double checking my book match to make sure that it looks like I got one board going all the way through the pieces on this, front to back. Should be that same grain pattern. Both pieces, making sure that that's going to be set up correctly. I'm going to go ahead and use that yellow frog tape just like I used before to keep the boards from sticking together once I'm going to go ahead and pry everything off. And just like before, I'm going to get a thin layer of Titebond II going over each surface for the glue up here. Off camera, I checked the end grain on each board to make sure that they were going to be stabilizing each other in the process and minimizing any chance of warping or twisting over time. I also checked the boards overnight after I milled everything up to make sure that they stayed straight. I don't want any warp that would be used in something like a post where that could deflect over time and end up causing an issue. And you'll notice the t-shirt on my back supporting adoption. If you have a friend or someone you know that is going through that process, make sure to give them some type of encouragement or support. Really rough road to go down, it ends up being having some pretty low lows, a lot of unexpected plot turns, a lot of them big emotional roller coasters. I spent some time before I came here. I was in Southeast China helping friends out at a Chinese American Christian orphanage, and each one of those kids, you know, at the end of the day, you want to provide a home and a family for them. So really see the need each kid's got for having a mom, having a dad, and having a just stable family to be able to grow up in. That big help that it gives to a kid of being able to have that, and just the absence it makes when they don't have that. So make sure to support, help, encourage. So this moves us into the third day of working on this bed. I'm breaking free the headboard posts, and I'm going to go ahead and prep for the footboard posts. Those are going to be one longer piece, which I'm going to cut in half a little bit later on. Once I get these out of the clamps, I'm going to get these all together. You'll see me mill them up shortly where I can start to put the face on. I'll have the post finished, and then we can really start to have this bed come together. But this prep work is necessary in order to have this look like one continuous piece of wood going all the way through, and it's got the advantage of being more stable because I'm alternating the grain direction going through those boards, and what that helps it to do is kind of like a piece of plywood to be more stable over time versus if I had a real thick post that I was going to be making this out of. You see that I did this out of solid walnut all the way through. You could also get away with doing this, but poplar would make it lighter. I think poplar would work. Possibly basswood might work on something like this. You could get something that would make it heavier and be real dimensionally stable, like an ash. That might be a good route to go. You might also find a few other types of species, like a white or a red oak, if you could get those at a good price and get nice, straight, stable boards. That could also be a real nice route to go. I know walnut's going to be pricier on this. This was what the client was looking for, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting them what they were looking for. But it was my own bed. I think I might go ahead and put something like maybe ash in the interior, or hard maple might be another route to go. Maybe not quite as stable, but also a real nice, solid, heavy, durable wood that would hold up for a long time. Soft maple could work. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm on day 4, and I'm getting the posts all ready to accept the other face on them. I've gotten everything prepped. Now I'm going to go ahead, set those into the clamps after I have glue on it, and then we're playing the waiting game again. Now on to day 5, I'm able to pull the clamps off, and I'm going to set these 2 posts aside. I'm going to focus on the post that is making up the footboard. So those I made a little bit longer so I can cut them in half at the end. And I also want to go to those as well. Make sure that those are square. If those are out of square, that's going to mean that my bed will be out of square, and nothing's going to work out properly. To help clean this up a little bit faster, I'm going to set it just a little bit inside of that bandsaw blade, clean up a face, run that over to the joiner and planer, and then I'll be able to prepare these pieces. Now, like I said before, heading back over to the planer, getting these materials to the right thickness so that they'll be prepared for the next glue up. Now that we've moved on to the 6th day, I'm able to pull the headboard out of the clamps. I'm going to move back over to the rails that I haven't touched in a few days, and I'm going to square up the edges of these, and then as well start to work on getting the posts and the other material to thickness here. I'll do that by trimming off a little bit of that excess that I put on the 1/4 inch veneer on the posts. Then I'm going to get that really nice and flush once I head over to the router with a flush trim bit. I'll move on to some final sand and then some thicknessing on that operation as well. Now I'm getting these posts to the final dimensions and shape. I'm running over to the miter saw in order to get these all cut to the same length. I'm doing the headboard pieces first, and then I'm going to move on to the footboard pieces. And all that work has gotten me to the point where now I have my headboards and my footboard posts cut to length and dimensioned properly. So I'm just going to spend some time rotating those and see which grain orientation looks the best. And I thought this would be a good time to mention while you're looking at this, instead of creating the posts so that it looks like one solid piece of wood going from front to back, I also could have made them so that the both the footboard pieces and the headboard pieces would be symmetrical. And the reason I didn't do that is there actually can be something in psychology when they look at this that the human mind can gravitate towards some patterns of asymmetry and prefer those. But it would look nice too if I ended up making both of those symmetrical all the way across. I will take advantage of that symmetry when I'm putting together the headboards and the footboards in the next video. But for right now, we'll start to wrap this up, and if you want to see where this goes next, stay tuned for the next video.